Hey everybody, and welcome to the Rheumatology Nurses Society BreakRheum series, where we'll be talking to rheumatology nurses, nurse practitioners, and other provider types about how they ended up in rheumatology, what their daily duties entail, and other issues related to their careers. I'm Carrie Beach. I am a rheumatology nurse at the Columbus Arthritis Center in Columbus, Ohio, and also the president-elect of the Rheumatology Nurses Society. I am fortunate enough to be your host today. This series is part of a larger educational initiative devoted to introducing current nursing, NP, and PA students, as well as professionals looking for a career transition to the field of rheumatology. This initiative has been funded through unsolicited grants from AbbVie, Gilead, and Pfizer. Additional education materials can be found on the Rheumatology Nurses Society website by going to www.rnsnurse.org/workforce. I am super excited to have Karen McKenihan with me today. She is the Director of Infusion and Clinical Services at Articularis Healthcare in Charleston, South Carolina, and is also one of my fellow RNS board members. So thanks, Karen, for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share this journey.
I'm excited to hear your story. Yes. So let's start off with our first question. So why did you initially want to become a nurse practitioner?
I honestly cannot remember a time when I didn't want to be a nurse. That is my earliest memory when people would ask me of what I wanted to do. I think originally it was the white hat and the uniform that attracted me. And then I was introduced to the Cherry Ames books. So I'm kind of dating myself. I was born in the 60s. My most formidable memories or earliest memories are probably from the late 60s, early 70s. And Cherry Ames was really big. And I was always attracted to nursing. And I think the first thing that attracted me was that hat, which I have never gotten to wear.
It loves the hat, the white tights, it's such a beautiful outfit.
The white hose back then.
Yeah. So how did you land your first job in rheumatology?
Well, I worked as a nurse in labor and delivery for about 23 to 25 years while my children were young. It was great working in the hospital, shift work, just allowed me to be really much more present in their lives. And then when my youngest started college, I was just itching for something different. I needed a change. And my husband said, well, you've considered going back to school. Why not now? So I enrolled online. And originally my plan was to teach because I've always enjoyed having students working with me at the bedside. But as I got into the first semester, the program that I was in actually opened up a family nurse practitioner track. And my husband and I talked it over and really felt like that opened up some more doors and gave me more options down the road. So I jumped over into that track, and that's how I ended up. I graduated in 2014 with my master's as a family nurse practitioner.
Cool. Wow. So not really what you planned, but...
And rheumatology was nowhere on my radar.
I don't think it was on any of our radar. So I know you have like a bit of a different role where you work. Can you talk a little bit about what your like day-to-day kind of workflow is?
Sure. So really the way I ended up, I never finished answering your first question, which was how did I end up in rheumatology? It's very competitive, nurse practitioners and PAs in the Charleston area. We have a lot of schools that graduate advanced practice providers. And so it took a while. I figured as a nurse that would give me a leg up. I've worked with a lot of the physicians and everything for a long time. And I found it didn't necessarily do that. So it was a rheumatologist who hired me first. And I worked with her for 2 years, and it was a great learning experience. Ended up leaving that role just because I wasn't able to see as many patients as I wanted to. And I just felt like I needed a change. And I went into teaching briefly and quickly confirmed that my going over to FNP was the right decision because teaching a student at the bedside is not quite the same as teaching didactic. So then I got this job where I am the Director of Infusion Services for Articularis Healthcare. And I manage our Charleston office. There's 7 doctors. We have 3 locations, and I manage those 3 locations. I have 7 nurses. I have 4 prior authorization folk that answer to me, along with 2 medical assistants. And so I'm doing a lot of management, but I'm also, as a nurse practitioner, using my skills day of. So I'm able to write orders. I'm able to tell the nurses what they can do for infusion reaction. I can help screen and decide whether a patient can be infused, whereas normally the nurses would have had to have gone down and interrupted the physicians. Yeah. And so I'm able to take a lot of those interruptions that the physicians would be experiencing, and that's part of my daily workflow. And then I do a lot of education of my nurses as well.
Okay, that is so interesting. We have a big infusion suite where we work, and we see that a lot. Our nurses having to run to each physician when there's a reaction or whatnot. So that's a very cool, different role that we usually see in rheumatology. So you talked a little bit. You have some nurses that directly report to you. Can you who else is part of the team where you work?
So on the way our building is set up, clinic is on one side, billing is in the middle, and infusion is on one side. And so we sort of talk about the other end of the building or the middle of the building. So my end of the building, infusion, I have in our big office, I have 13 chairs, and typically I staff 5 to 6 nurses up there, and we'll see 50, probably averaging 45 to 50 patients a day in that location. My other 2 locations are smaller, and they're staffed by 1 nurse. One of the offices, I do have a medical assistant who helps so that she's able to see more patients that day. And then we do utilize a medical assistant as well for vital signs and taking out IVs and everything up in our big office as well. And then I have 3 people who are doing my prior authorizations in Charleston. And they're my pros, my go-tos for can we infuse this drug? If a doctor says, hey, I'm switching Mrs. Jones from drug X to drug Y, can we do it today? They're my people who can look at the insurance and say, yep, you can do that, or, oh no, we got to make sure insurance is going to cover this.
Yeah. Which is a beautiful thing. They're our experts. We really lean on them. I mean, especially like you said, if they want to switch or even increase a dose, is this insurance company going to let us do it? And they know right away.
Right.
So they're invaluable.
Yeah. And then I have a, working relationship with the clinic side as well. Sometimes my nurses, if clinic is busy down there and I have extra, one of my nurses or my medical assistant might go down and help. And the same, it works the opposite. They'll come down and help us too when we need help.
Okay. So like a total teamwork kind of.
We do a great job of that. I'm really proud of the people I work with. They do a good job.
Awesome. Very cool. So what do you think is the most challenging part of your job?
Ooh, it probably changes from week to week. Of course, infusion reactions are the kind of adrenaline pumping, the bad infusion reactions. And there was a time in my life when I enjoyed that kind of thing. That's why I loved OB and the emergencies and stuff. So those are challenging, but they're few and far between. And I have great physicians. And so I never feel alone. I always have a physician that I can even call one of the doctors on the phone if they're not in the office and ask them questions. And so I have great support from my physicians, and that really helps in that area. And I also have some very robust policies around that, which assigns people roles in those sorts of emergent positions. So that helps. Probably for me, the most challenging is managing the people. I have a great team. And so it's not so much the personalities, it's knowing how to navigate between my bosses and my nurses. And, there's that constant discussion about how many nurses are too many nurses, how many patients can one nurse take care of. And it's navigating that dialogue because each side has a different perspective on this.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say currently, and most of the time, that is the hardest part of my job.
You kind of have to be the go-between between both. That would be tough. How about what you like best about your job?
My people.
Yep.
I have great staff, and I really respect them. They work hard. I want to foster and continue this hardworking teamwork idea. And I want them to enjoy their jobs, because that's what it's almost, that's, happy wife, happy life,
Yep.
happy nurse, happy patient. And
Yep.
so if you start with your nurses and you get good nurses, you're going to be much more likely to keep your patients happy.
Yep.
And I will say, at the end of the day, when I, have spent time talking to patients, I do a lot of teaching of patients, a lot of sitting at the side of a chair. I've spent an infusion sitting beside a patient who's really nervous and just talking them through it. And that I find very gratifying as well.
Yeah. I mean, you wear a lot of different hats, and
Yes.
that's nursing, right? I mean,
It is nursing. Yeah.
So why would you recommend to a current NP, PA, even a nursing student, what would you do to get them to consider a job in rheumatology? Other than just listen to your interview and know how much you love it.
Yeah. There's a couple things. I believe it's job security. Rheumatology is a growing field. It's going nowhere. It is only evolving and getting bigger. And so there is always going to be opportunity in rheumatology for a job.
Yeah.
It's, our physician workforce is getting older and retiring. There's not the fellowships to support new physicians coming into this. And so there's a real challenge for practices to keep and attract younger rheumatologists. And so the physician extenders, the advanced practice providers, are going to be the people who really help to support this growth in rheumatology. So job security is one reason. And I'll say that for the nurses as well, and for the medical assistants. If you learn rheumatology, you learn the lingo, you learn what the doctor, what it means, how to help these patients. It's all of our diseases are chronic. And so you get to know your patients. There's job security. You could probably go pretty much anywhere in the country and get the eye of somebody who is hiring. So that's one reason why I would say consider rheumatology. The other reason is great work-life balance.
Yep.
I don't have much experience in academic settings, in large academic areas. I'm in private practice. We work Monday through Thursday. I have no call. Yep. It's 8 a.m. to, I typically leave the office 6-ish. So it's long days, but man, I'm off today. It's Friday. Yeah. And and I hear a lot of doctors say that there's not a whole lot of call. Even if you do have call situations, it's pretty rare. It's not a busy call. It's not one where you're rushing in the middle of the night to go deliver a baby.
Right.
So the work-life balance is good. And there was one other thing I can't remember. It had to do with just the work. Well, it's a nerd's field. If you like to learn, you're constantly
always learning. Yes.
Yeah. And even like in infusion, we constantly have new drugs that are being developed, that are being brought to the market. So infusion is becoming much more of a part of chronic care. And so there is always going to be this need for infusion nurses, the nurse practitioner who is in the infusion field. So it's just growing. There's always going to be a demand for people in this role.
Learn. Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. And I really appreciate you taking time. I loved learning about your journey. As long as I've known you, I don't think I have actually heard the whole story of how you got to this role. So thank you so much for being here today, and thank you all for listening. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.